Good Tuesday morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thank you for that Caribbean music. Love it.
All right. I was loving it too. Who wants to start us off with a win today? Who's got something? Nobody? Oh boy. Maybe we do have a lot to worry about today. Well, I'll tell you, I'm on my little continuous glucose monitor journey here, thanks to Miss Megan Hess, who I believe is joining us this morning. And I am making some serious progress with my glucose levels. So I'm excited about it. If you've never kind of looked into this stuff, it plays a large role in the amount of energy that you have all day long. And I am a big believer in, energy is really what it's all about. That's the game that we're playing. How do we get it all day long, every day? There's obviously a lot of factors contributing to it, but I think my sugar intake wasn't under control, and this thing really helps you notice how much sugar can really affect you. So I started with an average daily glucose about 110. I'm getting into kind of a more normal range, which is 70 to 90. So yeah, I'm hopeful that I can keep this up. I think I've learned a bunch of stuff, and I'm only halfway through my 30-day experiment. So maybe that'll encourage somebody to check this stuff out. Product I'm using is called the company I'm using is called Levels. You got to subscribe to a study. That's because right now you can only get these if you have a prescription, but if you allow them to use the data in their study, you can get one. Yeah, so I think it's not going to make you healthier, but it's going to give you some insights, which is what I think all of these tools can do. So Keely, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you needed a script for it, and then you answered the question. So could you just post exactly like where you what the website is for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it in I'll put it in the chat, and just so you guys know, I would think it could be within a week, a month. The two major continuous glucose monitor companies should be releasing non-prescription monitors. I just couldn't wait. I really wanted to tackle this. So went ahead and did this through the study. But if you wait a little while, it might be a little bit cheaper to do it. This is going to cost about $400 for the 30 days. So it's not cheap. But they kept promising this summer, these two companies, they've been approved by the FDA, and then they just haven't released it. And so Megan had shared this way for me to kind of get around and start on my journey. So I did. And I'm stoked that I did. So, all right, let's get into today's topic.
There's no sound.
Steve, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Levels.com. It's literally that simple. If you guys wanted to check that out. All right. So today's topic is really medication for me, because I have a issue with this, and I'm trying to work on it. So I'm looking at ways to deal with it. But it's the, for lack of a better word, catastrophizing of things when they don't go your way. I tend to get too involved and can't just brush it off and move on. Maybe I'm average, but for me, I think I'm just holding on to things a little bit too long. And looking for different ways to kind of to deal with it. My meditation journey is going all right, but just looking for in the moment stuff. And I came across this. I thought I would share it, because I think it's pretty common to just worry about stuff or just have shit go sideways in real estate. I mean, every day is a roller coaster. You guys know the deal's together, the deal fell apart, the deal's back together, it fell apart. They're buying it, they're not buying it. The mortgage is good, the mortgage is not. I mean, it's
No,
crazy. All of that can
come on,
happen,
come on. Like,
in a day. So I think having a way to deal with it. We've talked about the 5-second funeral, which is you've got an issue, it doesn't go your way, and you've got to just deal with it and move on. So this one it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it is not. Who's the woman? Is that Brene Brown that does the 5-second? Am I getting that right? The 5-second
No,
funeral.
Mel Robbins.
Oh, Mel Robbins. I'm sorry, Mel Robbins. Thank you. So this is a method where it takes a little bit longer, and it's geared to calming you down, and it's using your senses, and it comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT methods. So it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it's 5 things this is like a pause your day, 5 things you can see. You're literally going to stop, identify those 5 things you can see. I can see my monitor, I can see my keyboard, I can see the plants outside, right? So you're using that sense. Then it's 4 things that you can touch, right? I can touch the mouse on my computer, I can touch my pen, I can touch my watch. Then it's 3 things you can hear, right? I can hear my dog walking around the background, I can hear my pen hitting the paper, I can hear a little bit of a background noise from my AirPods. 2 things you can smell. I can smell my coffee right now. I don't know what else I can smell right now. Maybe a little bit of mint left from brushing my teeth. And then something that you can taste. Right? So I can taste the coffee that I just took a sip of. So using your 5 senses, just taking a break, supposedly can help. So maybe that's something that you can put into play. I thought it was easy to remember. Interesting that how it's using your senses and using you to calm down. I can tell you that's the first time I've actually done it. I was just reading about this the other day and had it jotted down as a morning topic. And I feel a little calmer after just going through that little exercise. So that's what I had for you. I figured we'd open it up to just see, because there's so much stress involved with this. Anybody have anything else that they're doing? Obviously, you've got the typical stuff, right? You got to exercise, got to eat right, got to get your sleep. I was looking for something like in the moment, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mel Robbins, it's kind of just like forget about it. And that's not really what I was looking for. I was looking for to just calm the mind down a little bit. I came across this. So what do you guys have? Margareta.
Hi all. Love this. I'm obsessed with this because I'm big into optimization of anything, obviously. And so I think for me that my level is breathing. Like there's this something that taught me way back when I was a kid. Take 10 deep breaths. Seems to really work because it kind of calms you down. Take a glass of water, drink it. It calms you down. But I think the next step really, as we are grown adults and have to, I think the hardest thing is being stuck. And to not be stuck, make a decision. Whatever it is that has happened to you, don't necessarily, failures are good because it elevates you and gets you to the next step. But whatever has happened to you at that point, make a decision. What is your next step? And generate momentum and movement around that issue. Because that is, I think, the biggest thing that just gets everybody with a full basement of stuff because you don't know what to do with it. You can't make a decision around, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? Well, just throw it in the basement. But that's the same thing with our minds. If we don't know what to do next, the other big thing is like maybe I've always kind of had this idea of have a plan A or plan B about what you're going to do. You have a goal. This is my plan A, but if this doesn't work out, already have a plan B, what you might fall into. So the bottom line is, I feel like making a movement and just make a decision is the critical thing to get you out of that, like, oh, I'm so stuck, I don't know what I'm doing, I want to dwell in my pain. That's not it. And Gary Vee has plenty of thoughts about that, I'm sure. He always is like,
Yeah, I love.
just make a decision and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the deep breaths is definitely something, you know, that's kind of getting into that meditative state. So hopefully that can work for some of you guys and making a decision for sure. That part I think I do pretty well with. I don't tend to wait too long. I like to get a lot of input, so it might take me a little while to get the input from everybody. But I'll, as you guys know, I'll change on a dime if something's not working, and even if it's my decision to go in a certain direction, we can't keep going in a certain direction if we're not making progress. So we got to change. We got to change. Anybody else want to share something that's working for them? I mean, you definitely need to have a strategy if you want to have success in this industry, because it's going to be ups and downs. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if you don't deal well with that and you don't have a strategy, I think it can be a long haul for sure. All right. Let's open it up to some real estate. Who's got an interesting situation going on in a deal or had one or something that'll get our juices flowing this morning? Jen.
It's actually not specific to a deal. I just realized that I missed the webinar from Mari yesterday, and I was just wondering if somebody who did attend could talk about it.
Lauren?
So they just basically went over most of the changes to the forms that we have. They are going to be releasing a recording of the MAR town hall, as well as a cheat sheet for the changes to all the forms that they have. So we'll have that shortly.
And every state's doing their own town halls on this, but you know, there really isn't too much, right? There's a few different forms in every state, a few changes to the existing forms. Understand those forms and understand those changes. I think you're going to be fine. You know, the key in my mind is I really just think it's going to be, you're going to list and you are going to tell the seller what your commission is. And there's not really going to be much discussion about how much we're going to pay out to the buyer's agent. I don't see how you're going to be winning listing appointments trying to go for more than whatever you think is the listing side. You know, if you picked a commission rate, 2.5%, 3% to take a listing, and then you said, and we've got to offer out this, and now the total is 5, and somebody else is going in there saying it's only 2.5, you're not going to win very many listings. So I really think this plays out that you'll be sitting down with a seller negotiating what your commission is. And then you're going to say, hey, look, there's going to be opportunity for you to look at offers where there's going to be some compensation being requested from the buyer side. And we've got to look at what's in our best interest as a seller, the net amount of money in your pocket. That's the way I think it plays out. So then if that's how it's going to play out on the listing side, then on the buyer side, you guys just got to make sure you've had conversations. Right? I think it's going to be difficult to get buyers to pay out of pocket. Maybe you can get them to pay 0.5%, 1%. I think there's very few that are going to be willing to pay what we typically have gotten paid on the buy side to sign a doc and say that they're going to do it. Right? So what are the other ways that we can get some of that comp? Can we get some from the seller, build it into the offer? Can you get some from your lender? Right? Our preferred at Semper has offered up to a point back that they can use for whatever they want. They can use it towards their closing costs. They can use it towards paying your commission. So I think we're going to have to get creative on the buyer side for sure. But yeah, I think the forms there's a bunch in each state, but you know, they'll get loaded in Dotloop. You'll get used to filling out the new fields. Just get comfortable with that buyer's conversation, you know, and doing it for a day, doing it for a week, whatever that buyer agreement is going to say. Jen.
So what does that look like for existing listing
We have an addendum.
contracts?
We have an addendum that everybody will need to sign prior to August 17th. for existing listing contracts. It's
And I
super
think
short,
most,
like a half a
yeah.
paragraph.
Each,
Yep.
Lauren, each state has their own addendum.
Yep. Every state is going to have on their super. It's just like, hey, I, as a seller, was made aware prior to signing my contract that paying a buyer's commission was optional. That's all it says on it.
Now, how far into a contract do you have to be before they would have to sign that? Because if you're under agreement, are they already promised to do that or not necessarily?
If it's still on the market, active August 17th, doesn't matter where it is in the transaction, we're going to need one signed.
If only if it's still on the market, not if it's under agreement.
If it's under agreement too, if it is still in the MLS anywhere, we will need one of the addendums. Like I said, it's super simple. It doesn't change anything in our agreement at all. It really just says, I am aware that the buyer's commission that I am offering, it was optional. I was not forced to pay it.
Okay, so they can't rescind it.
No, but that's not what it's allowing. Unless, of course, you give them this and they say, you never told me it was optional, and then you might run into something, but don't anticipate that being too much of a thing.
Anybody else have any other questions on?
Well, I guess I'm just, so if you're under agreement and they were to get upset about it, I mean, it wasn't really optional before the 17th. So if they were to say something about it, what would happen to your commission if they said, no, I'm not paying that? It kind of would wreck the deal, I guess, right?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to be able to back out of it, Jen. If you've already got a signed purchase and sale, you've got a signed listing agreement that they offered it. I don't know how they're going to really be able to back out of it.
I know that in our purchase and sale, it really breaks it down and the seller's signing that, but some purchase and sale agreements from other companies, it doesn't break it down. It doesn't even
Right,
say the amount.
but your listing agreement does, right? And
Yeah.
they signed that listing agreement, so.
The existing Massachusetts listing agreement, Jen, really pretty much had it spelled out exactly as it's going to moving forward. They just broke it up a little bit farther and added a place in between that said, do you want to allow listing broker to offer compensation to buyer brokers? They have to check a box, yes or no. If yes, you move on to where you're offering it. If no, you're not going to move on to that. In our current listing, it says on top of or in addition to, do you want to allow portion of the percentage to be shared with the buyer's broker? So the wordage is in there, just maybe a little bit less clear. So I don't see how it can be argued in things that are already under contract.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because, you wouldn't have a copy of the contract if you're on the buyer side. And I just want to make sure that, there's not going to be any problem or that there could
There's no
potentially
problem
be.
there's no problem on the buyer side because it was offered in the MLS. I mean, that was one of the core reasons to have an MLS is so we'd have a clear documentation of what the cooperation was going to be. So if you've got an MLS printout that says you're offering X, that's always been the gold standard. So there should be no questions on the buy side. This was offered. I structured the deal. I'm due this compensation.
But now there's still a spot to put that in, but we just wouldn't write anything at all.
On the
Or is
listing
that,
agreement, you mean?
yeah, no, in MLS, there's still a spot to write that information in, but it's giving you the option. So do we just not write anything in from now on or as of
Every
the 17th?
every MLS is different. So you got to look at each MLS and figure out what their options are. So there's seller concession fields, but there's no longer a offer of compensation field. So there's not even going to be a
There is,
well,
Steve, on MLS PIN because
MLS PIN does have one.
but we as a
Right.
brokerage
But
have
the other
decided
ones
we're
don't.
not.
Yeah, you can't offer anything because of the NAR settlement, though. So even if some of the MLSs that you guys are participating in, if you're a realtor and you're part of this settlement, you can't offer compensation in the MLS, even though some of the MLSs are going to still have a field. Any other questions around this stuff? So
So in the MLS, in like the oh god, can we put please call a listing agent for compensation or anything like that in any?
yeah, so each MLS you got to look at. Each MLS is going to have a field and have options. You know, for example, I think MLS PIN says, you know, are willing to offer compensation. You know, or so it doesn't say what the compensation is, just says we're willing to offer it. You know, call listing agent for info or something along those lines. But I don't want to get into too many details here because we got, you know, so many different MLSs involved. So it should be very clear in your MLS what the field is, what the options are. Just know that you cannot put an offer of compensation in the MLS.
So we can't put a number, but we can say
Correct. Yeah. And I don't even want to say that you can say are willing to offer compensation because I don't know that every MLS is going to have that option. I just know that that happens to be an option for MLS PIN. And I don't, you know, they're trying to say that, you know, as an agent, you would then call before a showing to ask what the compensation is going to be. I mean, you guys know, I mean, we're lucky to get, you know, an appointment scheduled. We're going to call every listing agent before every showing to find out what the compensation is. I don't see that ever playing out. So I really just think it's going to be, you guys are going to write your offers with what the compensation that you're looking for is, and we're going to negotiate the deals. You know, calling every listing agent, you know, before every, you know, and they're saying, well, there's going to be these third-party sites where you can just post what the compensation is going to be, but then it's not quote unquote on the MLS. Again, I don't see how you're winning a listing by telling your seller that you're picking, hey, let's offer out this as compensation, right? Because now you've got your commission plus that commission, and somebody else is going to say, no, 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 all we have to do is just my commission. Let the buyers ask for what they want. So I don't think there's going to, I mean, there might be third-party sites that allow you to post what compensation your seller's willing to offer. I don't see it playing out that way. Go ahead, Jen.
So and remember you saying at a time that before you show a buyer property, you're going to get the exclusive agreement, or we would have to have that. It would be mandatory. Is that, I mean, I guess we would have to do that now if our compensation for the buyer's side isn't guaranteed. And then how do you, like, what does that conversation look like?
Yeah, I mean, you guys should have buyer agreements with all your buyers starting now. If you're working with a buyer right now and you don't have a buyer's agreement, I'd be sitting down and explaining the change that's about to happen on August 17th and getting one of those signed, because you know, you're not, after the 17th, you can't even show a property without it. So you just got to explain to your buyer, this is how it works now, right? Pat?
We talked a little bit about this yesterday, Jen. So you can have it just for the one property, or if they're comfortable with it, you can do it for a month. You can do it for 6 months. You can tailor it basically how you want, because there's a provisions section, and you would just, you know, say my compensation is typically 3%, and then if they are offering compensation and it's 2%, then that's what you get. But you can't go down. You can't go up. You can only go down. So if you say it's your compensation is 2% typically, and then they are offering 2.5, you're not going to get 2.5, you're going to get 2. So you always want to, in the exclusive, you always want to go a little bit higher, because then if they are offering it, you can go lower, but you can't go higher. But it doesn't have to specifically be, oh, we're going to sign a buyer, I've just met you and we're going to sign a 6-month contract. It could just be for that one house the first day. Or if they like you and you want to go show another 7 houses over the weekend and they have a pre-approval, then you can sign for that weekend. Or you could, if they're like, I want you to be my agent, you can sign it for 3 months or 6 months or whatever.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Very similar to, you know, for our Connecticut agents that are on, just we've always had to get a buyer's contract signed before you could show property in Connecticut. So it's pretty much the same way. Just change, forms have just a little bit more clear now for the consumer. Gilly.
Just so I have a printout and I can share it. I'm driving, but it basically says that, it was the law in Connecticut, because I've had some pushback with buyers. So like, I don't want to sign that. I says, well, we can make it for this one property, but this is the law. And I worked too hard. This is my bread and butter. I'm not going to lose my license over this. And they give you such pushback. So I have this form, and when I stop or whatever, I'll share it with you guys. But it's basically like, it's for Connecticut, but I'm sure we can make one up for Mass that states the law on there. And so I just didn't pull this shit out of my hat. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually here. This is it. This is the statute. Blah blah blah. And I show it to them, and I don't know. It holds a little bit more validity. I'm like, hey, listen, if you want to work with me, great. After this, if you don't, that's okay too. So. I don't know. I think that seems to help in certain situations, just to have it, somewhere in your car.
Yeah. Just be careful. It's not the law in Massachusetts. It is the law in Connecticut. In Massachusetts, It's not the law. I don't know if the laws will change in these different states, but this is what we would probably show is something from the National Association of Realtors showing that this is the settlement. This is the expectation here moving forward. So, and hopefully, we're going to start to, because the issue becomes like right now in Connecticut, I know for a fact that most brokerages are not doing it properly. They're not forcing their agents to follow the law, and nobody's been monitoring it. So the problem that you run into in Connecticut is, well, I saw houses with another agent. They didn't make me sign this, and I'm hopeful that this does now become an industry thing. This is how you do it. It's in everybody's best interest to sit down and go over what's really about to happen, And again, for those of you guys on this call who are taking this as a serious career, I think this is just going to benefit you. Let's have real conversations about, hey, yeah, I'm going to be taking time on nights and weekends, and this process could be 6 months, and this is how it works. And I'm happy to work with you, but I do got to get paid. I can't work with you for 3, 4, 5 months and then find out you went to an open house and put an offer in through the listing agent, right? Like, that's not fair. And I think any reasonable person would understand that that's not fair. So it's just having these conversations up front. Go ahead, Keely.
I was just going to say, I ran into that situation before many times. Well, we see properties all the time with agents. Like, there's no showing police, nobody's going to show up when you don't have a contract signed. It makes you look bad, like you're lying almost. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's right and make sure you you obey the law.
I think the key there. Yeah, well, I think the key there too is just, hey, I'm not sure, if that's a full-time agent or part-time, or if they're, how professional they are, but I don't want to lose my license. I'm a professional. This is my career. Here's the regulation. Like, I don't know if you're concerned about this, you should probably ask that other agent why they're not following the rules. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, like I was just going to add, a reasonable client is going to walk away, is not going to walk away from the agent who's willing to walk away if they don't sign. Right. So, if you really weigh the two sides, do you want that desperate agent who's willing to do something against the rules, or I'm willing to walk away if you don't sign this?
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to work with you, but this is the rules. Like, and I get it. And that's why I'm willing to just do a day or a week so I can earn your trust, right? I'm not going to tie you into a 6-month contract here or anything, but I'm really good. And I think you'll see that once we start working together. Anybody else like been in this situation, having the conversation, hey, when I said it this way, I got a good response, or any other tips or tricks that you're using in the field? Nicole?
I usually go into it pretty lighthearted. I set it for 6 months for all of Connecticut, and I say that to them, just,
hey, I know we just met. I have it for all of Connecticut for 6 months. That way you don't have to sign a new one every single time we go out. But if you ever want to, talk about it, or you don't feel like I'm working for you, like I know we just met, we can have that conversation. I never want you to feel like you're stuck working with someone. And it's normally they sign. Honestly, the only time I ever really see pushback with it is if in the back of their head they're thinking they're going to work with a family member or a friend, and you just have to get that out of them. So if someone's hesitant, just don't be afraid to ask, like, what is your hesitancy to sign this? Is there, anything? And it's either I was burnt by another agent, or another agent didn't make me sign it, or, well, my cousin is an agent and I'm not sure if I'm going to work with her. And then you just handle that objection, when it comes up. But normally they're willing to sign it if they're a serious buyer.
And I think that's the key thing, is we weed out some of this stuff that they're just right now, they're not telling you, right? They're using you to go look at properties. Meanwhile, they know when push comes to shove, they're going to use their aunt. They just don't want to bother their aunt right now because they know their aunt does this part-time. Well, now it's time to have a difficult conversation. Hey, I get that you've got the aunt and you might think about using her, but I can only do this if I know you're committed to working with me, right? And so I think it's just going to prevent you guys from spinning your tires on somebody that was never going to work with you anyway. That's what I love about it. And there's just, again, the transparency is great for both sides. And if you're doing your job, right? I mean, the people that, like you said, Nicole, is like, oh, I got burnt by this other agent. Unfortunately, the industry's 9 out of 10 agents they're part-time. They're not good. They don't return phone calls. They don't get back to people. They set them up on a listing alert and they set it and forget it. Like, that's the industry. And so that's what we're up against. Unfortunately, when you hear an agent's not worth it or whatever, I mean, you guys know darn well a good agent is worth it all day long. Somebody that's in it, that knows the inventory, that knows how to negotiate, that knows, how to stay on top of things, that knows how to get a hold of the preferreds. All of it matters to get these deals to the finish line. Those conversations are the ones that you got to have so that they understand what they're about to do. They're about to buy a house. This is a big deal. They're not buying a pair of sneakers. Awesome. Good conversation today. Appreciate all the questions. Have yourselves an awesome Tuesday. Use your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you use it and it works, I would love to hear from you. And we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow morning. Take care.